You let go and wait and watch. And go to your support group to hold you up. And you give it to God and you take it back, and you give it to God and you take it back and you give it to God. And now, the Son is returning. God's answering your prayers. The Father can hardly believe his eyes as he sees the Son in the distant horizon. And he runs. He runs in front of the entire village that's 50-50 split between tongue lashing or silent treatment and 100% agreed on disownment. He runs. He gives just enough of an apology to let him know the Son's repentant, and then stops him. Now, the question for today is, how could he do that? How could he not at least make the Son grovel? Pay him back somehow for what he put him through? How could he do that? There's not a father or mother in the village who'd do what he did. How could he do it? Bigger person technique number 1. If you've got a pencil, it's worth writing it down. How could he do it? He worshipped God and not who? Not his Son. Somewhere along the way, he realized what all of us can and should realize, that God's love can become more real to us than the love of anyone else. Somewhere along the way, in that bedroom, in that backyard, in that bathroom, in the car, wherever you and I go to be alone with God when things are hard. One more time, this is worth writing down too. He realized that the love of God can become more real to him than the love of anyone else. Jesus once told his disciples, who marveled at how big a person he was, "I've got food to eat that you know nothing about." Bigger person technique number 1. He worshiped God, not his Son. He used the second technique with his other son, the older son. Meanwhile, the older son comes in from the field. When he hears the house, he hears music and dancing. What a way to find out. The father, in his exuberance, has thrown a party for his returning son and invited the entire village. But he failed to consult, much less inform, his other son. So that son becomes terribly hurt and angry. Who's felt that? Who's felt that your parents favored some sibling over you? Anybody here ever have that feeling? Yeah. Oh. It's a terrible thing. There are people in the Bible who did that. People in the Bible who did that. It's a terrible, painful thing. Preeminently, Joseph in the Old Testament did it. With his 12 sons, he favored, not Joseph, Jacob, favored his son Joseph. As you know, I was the prince in my family. And I can see why, frankly. Firstborn privilege, certainly at my grandparents, in an Italian household, the number 1 son of the number 1 son is way above everybody else. More gifts, more treatment, more favor. I got it. Unfair to all of us, really, me and my siblings. Sad. Now, when Jesus directed this story at the older brother Pharisees about sinning younger brothers, he expected them to understand what might at first glance seem like a slight in that context. But for our Father's Day application in our homes, the truth is we dads wound our children through our oversights, our ignorance, our selfishness, our negligence, our thoughtlessness, our littleness. So, the older brother pouts, and he refuses to go in. And I guess we can't blame him too much. I know he feels entitled, that's wrong. I know he feels superior, that's wrong. I know he gloated over his brother's fall and wouldn't have thought of going after him, that's wrong. But still, his father's messed up. He should have sought him out right away. He made a mistake. And now the entire village, attending the party, who's already witnessed his humiliation by the prodigal, is seeing him get disrespected by his older son, who is refusing to come into the party. Know what they say? Let him stay out there. Who's in control here, you or your son? How dare he embarrass you like that? So what does the father do? What does the father do? He gets up and he goes out. And the villagers flock to the window, sure that he's going to give his son some scolding, the scolding of his life. But they're in for a rude awakening because his father goes out and pleads with him. My son, the father said, you're always with me. Everything I have is yours. But we had to celebrate and be glad. We had to celebrate and be glad. I should have told you. I forgot. I was too caught up in it. We had to do this, see. Because this brother of yours, he was virtually dead. And he's alive again. He was lost, and he's found. The father has once again done something no other person in the village could have done. Because he's learned to use a technique every one of us fathers needs to master. A second technique. The second bigger person technique called rewind. We won't always say it right the first time. And the Holy Spirit will come to us fathers and He will correct us. It happens. It's then that we go to our children, we swallow our pride, we get bigger, and we go to our children and we tell them, I didn't say that the way I wanted to. I'd like to rewind it. Here's what I wish I'd said or I did. And I'm sorry. I'll try not to do it that way ever again. Rewind. Oh, we can use this technique with spouses. They can be used with co-workers. Rewind is a wonderful technique. A fresh start. He learned how to use rewind. Now I want to tell us a story very briefly about a hero we have here, one of my heroes, P.J. Lovato. Talk about a father who got big. Some of you know the story. Most of you know the story. Some of you don't. I won't get into details. I just want to say this. This man, this big man, went to prison for his son. Didn't have to. I know some people would say, well, he didn't have to take, he didn't have a choice, but he did have a choice. And with a good lawyer, he could have gotten out of that. And his son would have taken the rap. He took the rap for his son. He's a hero. He's a big man. Prison, for goodness sakes. Spent 1.5 years in prison for his son. And then more time in a halfway house. He's a big man. He's a big man. Two things real quickly. Two techniques, two bigger person techniques. First, we must worship God and not our children. We must worship God and not our job. We must worship God, not our spouse. We must worship God and not our family. We must worship God and not our friends. Because every one of those things I just named will fail us. And God never will. He learned how to worship God and not anything else. Bigger person technique number 2. He learned how to use rewind. He got out of himself, saw how he was coming across, observational ego, saw how he was coming across, and he rewound. I didn't say that the way I wanted to. I didn't do that the way I wanted to. I'd like to rewind it. Here's what I wish I'd said or did. This past week, I did that personally with a member of our church. Did it wrong. Called him back. Apologized. Rewind. Here's what I would have said if I could. Please stand. I'm going to ask the worship team to sing very softly. June has had a fall this morning, so we won't have her. And I'm going to ask our young men, Daniel and David, Rob Franco, Noe, John, Nathan, Matthew, our young men, our young dads, to come forward. And if you need prayer this morning, especially you dads, need a touch, you come forward. Your time.